podcast. Welcome, listeners, to Kyle and Cody's Called CinemaCast. I'm Kyle.
I'm Cody.
Little bit of a change of plans. I said we'd be doing Bloodshot this week, but we're switching things around and we're doing Dredd this week instead. Instead, we'll do Bloodshot next. Cody got it mixed up, and I didn't correct him. I didn't realize that we had mixed it up until I was like 30 minutes into the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, in hindsight, I have failed everybody here horribly.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I don't know,
I've come to... No, I've come to the rationalization that we should have done the original Dredd movie with Sylvester Stallone, and I guess, Rob Schneider was apparently cool in the 1990s or something.
Yeah, Rob Schneider in that movie. I've seen it. He played like a very 80s style comedic relief role where he like followed around Sylvester Stallone making jokes. So that was the thing. Like, that's not a very good movie. It's okay, but
and then he followed that career up by following around Adam Sandler making jokes.
I mean, someone has to like Rob Schneider.
We'll put that in,
he needs to have at least
well, somebody has to like Adam Sandler.
I feel like Adam Sandler has more claim to being liked than Rob Schneider, though. Like, people do like Adam Sandler out there, despite people shit on him, but people do like him technically out in the world. It's just, I don't think that Rob Schneider does.
I mean, I guess it goes both ways, because Adam Sandler likes Rob Schneider enough to put him in like 90% of his movies.
Yeah, because they're both not very funny. I think the one thing that like Adam Sandler would have on Rob Schneider is that like Adam Sandler could be described as like he's a lot more of a leading man than Rob Schneider. I think people would like. This is strange to say, but he has like more like sex appeal, quote unquote, despite him being like not that handsome at all. I don't know.
Okay, but if there's anything to take away from this episode, is that Kyle thinks that Adam Sandler has more sex appeal
than Rob Schneider.
Has sex appeal. I guess that's a very like distinguishing. Yeah, that's definitely a more distinguishable point at this point.
Yeah, like,
but if anybody was like taking quotations out of like connotation, then that's what you can take away from this episode.
I'm just saying, if you were Rob Schneider's age, if you were Adam Sandler's age and you were like someone who was married to Adam Sandler, you wouldn't think like, oh geez, I really like scraped the absolute bottom of the barrel. He's not like top of the barrel, somewhere like middle of the barrel. I don't know.
Okay. Well, he's been married once.
Yeah. And he's like been a like lead in like romantic movies, and people buy it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. It's not like when you pair him with like a really attractive leading lady, it's not as out of place as a lot of comedians end up seeming.
I love Googling Adam Sandler, because then I get to remember that like at one point in time, Adam Sandler was actually half decent actor, and then I read the other half of his filmography and then just feel instant regret that I actually thought he was a decent actor.
Which we discuss in the season 1 episode where we review Big Daddy. For those of you who want to explore that topic more. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
that's up on
anything
YouTube,
post, I guess, like maybe even like 2005 is kind of where he starts falling off. I don't hate Click, so I guess like 2006 maybe.
I mean, he made bad movies before that. It's just that like the good. It's less that he started making bad movies it's that the good movies dried up. Is all. I think is the case. Because like there's some bad ones back there.
I guess there might be a couple of movies in there that I'm like, like, I'd have to actually be able to go back and fact check
Yeah.
that because,
I
like,
mean, we
Little
discussed this in
Nicky to
season 1,
me
episode 5. So I think we go over that. I think we go over that filmography. I remember doing that when we were still recording in person in the before times. That was one of the last ones that we did in person. I think maybe second to last. I don't know. Yeah, this week, 2012 Dredd movie. Yeah, starring Carl Urban. It's based on the British anthology, like a popular feature of the British anthology comic series 2000 AD. Dredd being the breakout character from that series. He appeared in its second issue. 2000 AD is like a satire about like American and British culture, and like the ways in which it's violent, and it's like meant to like critique police states.
it was also written by Alan Moore, correct?
At one point, Alan Moore has done some writing.
Yeah.
Like it's an anthology series. The Judge Dredd himself, he has been written by Alan Moore, but he was created by John Wagner and writer John Wagner and artist Carlo Esguerra, and they created that in 1977. Judge Dredd
Oh.
Judge Dredd is a is like a genetically engineered super cop that serves in the Justice Department of Mega City 1, which is a mega city which encompasses like an area stretching from Boston to Washington D.C. and houses in the state in the at the time of the movie 800 million people. Yeah, it's set in like a post nuclear war world where they've like sealed everyone into like these big mega cities, and the essentially government is run by the police as a sort of military dictatorship. And the judge in the name Judge Dredd, they're like because the system is so inefficient, they've just like combined judges and police officers, so that the police officers are now called judges, and they can make like sentencing arrangements on the spot, essentially, which is a thing they do. Normally, they get hauled off to places called like isolation blocks for a number of years that are just assigned on the spot. It's just like 2 years for this, 5 years for that, and a lot of people are ended up killed as a line of duty. They can judges can perform death sentences on the street. Although death sentences, like the crimes of like resisting an officer, are automatic death sentences, so they don't actually need to haul people away for like a formal execution anyway. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting little thing. It's actually a story that takes place in real time, sort of. It's obviously set in the future, but in the continuity, I don't know if they've changed this, but it was essentially that as time passed from the original appearance of Judge Dredd, the next story, the most recent story, would take place in that number of years since Judge Dredd's first appearance in 1977. So they have stories going into his 70s currently.
As an old man.
Yeah. He's undergone some like
I just want
genetic
to
rejuvenations, but yeah.
I want to say this character has definitely been cast from the point of uh somebody's jawline at this point in time, because the first person to play him was Sylvester Stallone, which he actually removes his helmet in the original.
He
I don't
doesn't
think he
spend a
does
lot of
that
time in
in
the helmet, actually. It's
any
like
of
a
the
lot
medias,
less.
not even in the comics. And actually, I think notoriously, I was reading that when they did remove his helmet from the comic books, it was actually censored out. They put a censor bar over it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
think
what
we
I'm
might.
saying is,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sylvester Stallone originally played this character, and then Carl Urban plays him now, which Carl Urban is known for The Lords of the Rings. He played Eomer, Amor, one of the the main writer of Rohan guy, and then also he played Leonard McCoy in the new Star Trek reboot uh, film series.
Yeah. I think it's like okay, so Judge Dredd is technically a clone, so we technically do know what his face looks like, I think. Because or if I think if we've seen Rico's face. Because he has mm, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, he's maybe deformed, but like we can know basically what Dredd looks like because he's a clone. Yeah, yeah, technically we never see Judge Joseph Dredd's face. Yeah, this is a different kind of movie. The first one's just like a story where, or the Stallone one's a story where he deals with his evil twin brother Rico Dredd, and it's like a grander level of narrative. This movie's actually more of a Die Hard clone in that it's like a movie that takes an action movie that takes place in a high rise.
Mhm.
So yeah, or like in an enclosed building. Depends on how you define Die Hard clone. I'd say any enclosed, like a large enclosed building. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a high rise. Just like you need to be stuck in a building for the most part. I'd say like White House Down is a Die Hard clone too. So, but yeah, so yeah, this is very different. This movie has like a lot of critical acclaim. A lot of people do say it doesn't have as many as of the satirical elements that the comic has, which I think is maybe slightly more apparent in the 1980 in the Sylvester Stallone version, but I think that's just because of the sillier tone. I think if you're thinking
I
critically
gotta
about
say,
this, but yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I gotta say that there's like a certain aesthetic of the Sylvester Stallone version where it's like clearly 1997 trying to be like futuristic level of like good, and I like that. In like, it's definitely early sci-fi and it has that appeal. This one kind of it takes out all of that aspect and it's just kind of becomes, I don't know, generic and
It's
bland almost
I
in its
I
own sense.
disagree. I think it's like it felt grounded in a way, like this kind of like took place and like it has a very near future vibe to it where like oh this is something that kind of could happen in real life and like
What, the United States becoming a fucking mutated
not so
nuclear
much
wasteland?
that just the like
Like, I would say that hits a little close to home, but
in the sense that like this is what I think there's like it's kind of like an alternate future thing. It's not like there's not much in here that's like super futuristic, especially not from our age. Like yeah, it's a fancy gun, but it's all stuff that like a lot of this is stuff we do absolutely possess. I think we could basically make like
okay,
half of
but
one of these
Kyle,
mega powers, but
we talked about this in the Dune episode. Voice activated guns are not fucking practical.
well, it's voice activated to switch the modes. It's not voice activated to fire.
But still impractical.
True. Although one could say a police state is wildly impractical. Da, da, da.
I don't
Stares directly at
like. Do you
camera.
want me to like high five you off screen for this like
Kind of.
semi like like I'm not going to pat you on the back for doing the bare minimum of fucking like
Critical analysis. But yeah, I still think back to the satire point. I still think you can view it as a critique. It's just not in like a very obvious way. And I think honestly, like if the point of view is like, oh well, people are just gonna like admire the action of this, and it really does buy into the whole thing. It really does just like show this really cool police officer doing awesome police stuff and doing like a lot of stuff to bring order to the disorderly streets. And I think, yeah, I think you can still level that critique at the original stuff, because a lot of people do just read that for the action. I don't think the message sinks in. I don't think the message of some of this stuff sinks in nearly as much as we would like at the best of times. Also, I don't think I think there's still some subtext that like he says he's bringing order to the streets, but like it's pointed out in the like in the story, like they're only dealing with 6% of anything. Like this, they're not a terribly effective police force at the best of times. They're like a bunch of violent thugs that get a bunch of people killed without a lot of due process, and that's very much also just corrupt organization. Just I don't. I think you can still view it as a critique, police, some critique of
I
police
think
culture, but yeah.
I think Rick and Morty did a good parody of what the problem with like these types of movies are when they did interdimensional cable, where they're like there's only 12 something something
Jan
Vincents
Michael Vincent's.
and 13 sector or like yeah where they're like we can't have enough Jan Michael Vincents to police all of these states, and it like I think ultimately that's kind of their issue is actually bringing up the statistics they used in the movies, and it says 12 serious crimes reported every minute, or about 17,000 per day, while the crime rate of megacity would be relatively low. It's also revealed that the judges only have enough resources to respond to around 6% of these crimes.
And like as it's been pointed out by every like person who ever existed, most crime is caused by people who don't have any fucking money and like need some sun to get through
Mm-hmm.
their fucking day, not like some evil like sinister motivation. And if people had like gear and like places to live
Resources.
and yeah, resources where they're not just screwed all the time, that would lower the crime rates. And yeah, you can I think there's still a point to be made of like this I don't yeah, like it's not clear how all this works just from the movie anyway, but like yeah, I think if a lot of these people are fighting Dredd because they need money from the drug dealer in order to pay their probably exorbitantly high rent, let's face it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like
Also,
most yeah, go ahead.
really hate the fact. I was gonna say, I really hate the fact that they named this fucking city in this movie Peachtree City.
Well, yeah, the mega building is called Peachtrees.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not called Peachtree Cities.
No,
Good.
the city is called Mega City 1. The building is called Peachtrees. But the building contains 80,000
But
people,
does that?
so kind of a city.
What was I gonna say there? What does that like like lead to the idea that there's a Mega City 2 or a Mega City 3? Like,
Yeah.
how many mega cities are there in the Dread? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's
And
some
do they
number of them.
all follow the same bullshit?
Sort of, yeah. I think there's like they're not all like in this system, and like the system that is the Justice Department of in the Justice Department, but a lot of these mega cities are being tried to run like this. It seems like even like some across the world are like not run, are like run in similar fashions, if not by like a different branch of this organization. I think is the
Sorry, I was
broad
just trying to
strokes.
figure out like what other circulations does 2000 AD have?
How do you mean? Like, where is it published, or?
Well, I know it's British, first of all, but I was wondering if there's any other like major uh works that they own the rights to as
Uh, I don't know if there's any other major. Well, 2000 AD is the magazine, and like Judge Dredd's a thing. Oh yeah, main characters. There's stuff like Tharg the Mighty, Strontium Dog, Rogue Trooper, Nikolai Dante, Slain, ABC Warriors, Nemesis of the Warlock. Yeah, no, there's other guys, just nothing super big. Nothing nearly as big.
Okay, so this is their one like real acclaim to fame.
Yeah, yeah. This is like
Okay.
yeah, it's like a comic magazine, and this is like the big thing that got really popular from it. So there's like a lot of like smaller stuff. It's still running, I believe. There's actually 2,000, 2,200 issues, something like that, as of like December 2021, with like maybe like 2,300 if you count all the special stuff. But yeah, there's like a lot of
Nemesis
one
the
offs in it, I
Warlock.
think. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's some critique in it. I just don't I think there's a lot of issues. And like any type of these action movies, it's like, oh oh yeah, it's hard not to glorify like the star of the action movie, and like if you make it a proper satire, do you have to make it a bad action movie in order for it to be good? Is that a thing that happens? And like there's absolutely critiques I could have of the action, but I think it does do quite well.
I was gonna say that there's definitely a way that you could have done this movie to be pure satire, but at that point in time, how many diminishing returns are you gonna get?
But yeah, I think yeah, it's like a lot of the I think issues with the satire is like, oh yeah, can you ever like display violence on screen and not have the audience be excited by it? It's just like it's not like an intellect like it's something you might realize on an intellectual level that things are wrong with it, but it's not like something you're going to acknowledge in the moment to moment. You're going to get like excited by the action movie, and that's just how like a lot of human beings work, is they like, yay, action, yeah, punch things. As long as like there's like no physical danger, it's hard without the like in real life, you get into a fight, it can be unpleasant because you're going to get punched in the face. But on a movie, you're just getting the experience of like seeing the punch happen, and like there's no pain. You're not, so
Mhm.
it's really easy to like not see the bad side of violence. And even like at the best of times, when you display it in like all its gory badness, it can you're not gonna feel it as much, and you got to like pay attention to the story to get them at, like get any like anti-violence message. I think that's just the way of things at the end of the day. I don't know there's a fix for it.
I think I think another thing is sorry, I was gonna make a joke earlier about the idea that like judges take all role of law enforcement, so they're also like forensic science and like murder scene cleanup crew members and all this other stuff that aren't necessarily like cops but are like uh pseudo pseudo important to the
Well,
idea
they
of
have like
crime. And
support guys that come out to clean up
yeah,
after them,
exactly.
but like that they have non-judges, but yeah, the judges, we follow the judges because that's where the action is.
What I was gonna say is I don't think you can uh do full satire without also vilifying your character. And in this movie, I don't fully understand Judge's motivation behind his character, where he's just like, I'm absolute good, I guess, is like the
Yeah, I mean, he's
lawful good, like completely lawful good,
lawful neutral, I
right?
think. I don't think he actually
Uh
yeah. Like
I don't
I
think he ever
like especially like I think
breaks
he
lawful neutral.
I mean they do kill a lot of unarmed guys or like some unarmed guys and like he does definitely do like stuff that would be considered war crimes, but we'll get to that. Some really nasty weapons are used.
Yeah, but it's always under the like under the pretenses of I'm a judge, I'm a cop, and I'm untouchable.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes him the bad guy. It's like I am like
Okay,
the
but
symbol of the law and that means I can do whatever I want to uphold it. Even though I'm not doing a very good job because there's only one guy and most of these problems are caused by poverty and not by like people not being scared of me enough. That's like I think like he's absolutely an authoritarian figure. Yeah, he like the accomplishments that he achieves in this is like he stops a drug lab. That's all he does. Um,
Mhm.
like, yeah, the guys in charge of the drug lab were murderers, but maybe if like drugs weren't punished, then never mind. I'm not gonna get into like the reason why the drug war is ultimately like a bad pursuit because it causes the violence in the first place. Because people need to go underground and therefore they become outlaws and are not like subjected to the normal limits of people within the law, even if the people within the law get away with stuff, but at least it's like they're not even following like the half-assed like
So
rules of
yeah, what
society at that point. Yeah.
like the only form of character growth that we see this character like actually have by the end of the movie is the fact that he should have not taken what's her face on as a judge. And also the judge parameters are kind of fucked and we shouldn't really, well, we should mention that.
Yeah. I mean,
Um it's
to be
stated that like
fair,
1 in 5 people pass judge exam on their first day.
oh, what you mean 1 in 5 I think die on their first or die on their first day, I think.
And also
Yeah.
like 1 in 5 don't pass.
Yeah, I think
So
because they die is what he was getting at there. But then again, I don't know. Maybe that was true. But yeah, movie made 41 million off a 30 like a 30 to 45 million dollar budget. That's a big range they've set out there. So this either didn't make its money back or lost a lot of money. One of the two. Principally filmed in South Africa, in Cape Town and Johannesburg. So that's a thing. Also some stuff in the UK, but yeah, yeah. So this didn't this like I don't think they terribly lost money on it, but there's no motivation for like the studio to do like a sequel at all, which I think is fine. I think this is fine to stand on its own. But yeah, it just didn't make its money back. Yeah, it says that like they had some sequels planned. Ones like stuff about the origins of Mega City and whatnot. I think this is like a this movie's best is uh like an interesting what am I call it like Die Hard clone, but I don't think it's I don't know how this would be suited toward actually like doing the larger storyline stuff. But yeah, it didn't make its
like
yeah.
it's one of those things that I think like also like if they were to uh like make an anthology series of Dread, okay,
Yeah, they could do that.
interconnected stories like Sin City and then threw it together, I think that would have been
Yeah,
better overall for the story because it could show overarching um
there's precedent for
ideologies
that.
within the city because like well like you've got like I wouldn't call it an oligarchy but you've got like a very
Military dictatorship,
disproportionate
I'd say, would be the proper
sure
term. Yeah.
I was just going to say a disproportionate social structure which also ultimately boils down to military dictatorship but
Yeah, all the money from like the rent and stuff is clearly being flowed into the military because no one else has anything basically. I think we see like a kid with like a video game headset, but that's about it. It doesn't seem like anyone else has shit.
well I mean like there's kids running around skateboarding stuff like
Yeah.
that like I wouldn't completely define it as a full military dictatorship, more of a police state than
I
anything.
mean,
But
people some people are allowed to skateboard in military dictatorships. It's like the issue with the military dictatorship isn't necessarily like the everyone everywhere doesn't have their freedom. It's just like God forbid you cross everyone or else you'll get shot. Like yeah, there's a lot of you lose a lot of civil liberties. Like I don't think there's no representation here. You think they're maintaining that because everyone just
yes,
agrees to
but
it?
what I'm stating that if it was a military dictatorship, then there would be higher people being forced to work. This place has 96.6 unemployment rate.
Yeah, but does that
Like
mean they have jobs for that
you're
96%?
discounting like yeah,
Like it could
because like
entirely be that
if
like no that like there's only like maybe like a million jobs in the whole city. Like that's entirely possible. And the like legitimate
yes,
jobs.
because the amount of free exploitive labor is definitely not being called into question by a military dictatorship is what I'm saying. Like if you could literally lock children into a fucking warehouse as a dictator, don't have to pay him and put it under the threat of death that they could potentially die within the next 20 minutes to sit there and make bullets for guns. That's a whole lot different than somebody who's running around skateboarding or somebody who's got headphones or something like that.
Here's the thing. I don't know like that like being enslaved isn't necessarily I think okay, what am I saying here? Hold on. Just let me get this all straight. I have a thing. I just need to like get the words in order.
Yep.
The thing is, like, there could be a scenario where like they need let's say they need have like the people that need there's like a million jobs in Mega City 1 that they need doing. They wouldn't necessarily need slaves for that. And like there's actually a lot of press like just because they're the judge program exists like would like exist in this scenario to like prevent other people from like gaining political power over them. Like I seriously doubt that like everyone's not like forming like their own unions or whatever out of like the respect for the government. Those guys probably get 3 years in the hole. Like I think like the military can get whatever they want and they don't necessarily care where the rest of the people get their money, especially since they get to stroke their own egos whenever they find out some drug lab's going and they can send some guy in to keep everyone in line. I don't think this society has a necessary like a need for slavery necessarily or anything.
So what you're saying is the upper class needs the lower class to be able to state like we're using all this fucking drug money to pay for rent and because they're getting their rent paid they're not going into bust up drug labs so
Sort of. I think the issue mostly is like what it seems like is the military dictatorship, the Justice Department in this case, doesn't care, doesn't technically care about everyone. But here's the thing: you can have like one end of the government that's like, "Hey, we need to like keep all these laws in place in order to justify the judge program to keep them in line." Because like, here's the thing about police officers: the same guys that deal with murders are the same guys that will like say put down a union when you need to. So in order to like maintain such a large police force in the maybe 9/10 of the year, 9/10 of the year where there's not some big union uprising, is like you'll need like a high crime rate to justify raising that budget every year, because yeah, that's just how it works. You can't just be like gathering an army every time there's a union uprising to put these people down. That would be unreliable. Like I'm saying, this is like an actual, like these guys work like the police work in real life. This is just like a really
Mhm.
exaggerated version of it. Like it's not like a whole fancy thing.
So
Yeah.
for example, like, it would be, uh, Biden upping the defense budget
Hmm.
because Russia's potentially a threat in the background.
Mm, sort of.
Not
It
to
more
hit way too close to home, but, like
like I'm saying it's like Biden increasing like you can on one hand have Biden increasing the police budget because he believes the police are like the best way to keep like peace and order in the world, and on another end have a guy who's collecting all this money from these like collecting all this money from having like a big monopoly on all these large apartment buildings in these large metropolitan areas. But if yeah, you allowed
Oh,
people to get, oh
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So
like
it's
real
like
life.
companies forcing workers to go back to work because they don't wanna lose out all the money they have invested into real estate currently for their office jobs.
Yeah, this is a lot. My issue here is it's a lot more like real life than we're giving it credit. Like we've dressed all this scenario, we've dressed this fictional scenario. It's like when you weren't here, but like when I did the RoboCop 2 review, I made the joke with Curtis that that RoboCop predicted the that I said RoboCop predicted the introduction of privately run prisons into the American ecosystem 4 years after that America had already started privatizing prisons. We've dressed all this up in like a silly thing, but a lot of these problems are still happening on like a less silly scale and like a lot less compressed into like one little ball,
Uh-huh.
like what we're seeing here. These problems are real. They're just not like this. What this movie has done is like taken those problems and like progressed them into like one big concrete box and like done it to demonstrate and used it to like demonstrate the problem, which is maybe like the problem with all allegory, in that like we've taken a real problem and put set dressing on it so that people don't recognize that its relation to real life,
Mhm.
which I've said is a which I've said to people is a problem sometimes, just because like,
Well, ultimately, I think, like, comic books have been doing this for years,
oh yeah, no, true.
and
But
doing
I'll
it
say,
well.
yeah, yeah, true. Essentially, what the point is like a weakness of allegory is that it like distances the real problem from the or the argument of the book away from the real problem, in that people reading the allegory won't like pick up on like, hey, this allegory is talking about my culture and like my way of life. But on the flip side of that, there's always a lot of scenarios where like you'll never get that message out if you just state it bluntly. That's the flip side of this, and sometimes that's literally true. You're not releasing a critique of like actual society in certain places on earth and certain times. with Star Trek, for example, like they did a lot of episodes where like did allegories about like the race, the injustices happening in the United States. If you had just made an episode about those, you would get like chewed out to shit. This is something that like, um, what's the guy's name who ran Star Trek? I'm forgetting his name. Gene
Who
Roddenberry.
ran Star Trek?
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry
Yes.
is the guy I'm thinking of. Before Star Trek, he did like a cop show that was like
Mm-hmm.
not as that would occasionally like deal with social issues, and he would get like chased off the air for this, and like because you were displaying like the real thing, and it's like, hey, this real thing is a problem, and like people will be like, hey, you're talking about me, let's chase you off the television, but you can do it in an allegory, and like you won't get chased off the television, but at least some people will realize what's happening. And the trade-off for
Yeah.
that is that like some people won't realize what you're saying. But even then, like a strong allegory
I
will
think
like
a good example of this was when some of the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff like that were happening in the United States. Brooklyn Nine-Nine came out and had one of their like senior officers, like Rosa Diaz from the show, quit the police force. But like what I'm saying is that like there was a lot of like I question it, like as a person who's watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine for almost every season before that. What I'm saying is it's kind of ironic that a show that profited off the idea of like police officers um
being heroes.
was to
Yeah.
step up and start trying to being anywhere near this. But like what I'm saying now is like that took a lot of strength as like a show to acknowledge that it's kind of towing the line between, I don't know, satire and I guess like realism at that point. And I mean, all the power to them for doing it instead of just self-containing their fictional world in a bubble and pretending that stuff like this never happens or existed in the first place. So
Yeah, and it's like it's a police force that in real life when it goes on strike will like show up like will hold up like big racist signs. So like the New York Police Department is like notoriously one of the bad ones, like the really bad ones. Um
Mhm.
but I think we get into the movie. We talked mostly an hour about preamble. This must be like a something of a record actually.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll spend too much time on the plot. I only have like 3 pages of the notes, which isn't terribly long. Yeah, and just one last thing before we get into the plot, because this is just going to be important, just in case. Mostly just for like dumb internet commentators. Some of this isn't like just me reading into stuff. This is like stuff stayed in the text. I think there's like a scene in one of the Dredd comics where Dredd talks to like the founder of the Justice Department, and it's just like, hey, yeah, this was a mistake. We took away a bunch of people's like personal freedoms and whatnot, and Judge just like ignores that and just like leaves it, like just like doesn't bring it up to anybody because he's the only one to hear the last words. Just he's like absolutely involved in all this. He's not like the hero of this story at all. But anyway, we open the movie to a Dredd giving a like voiceover explaining like the like background of the story. We get like like a camera shot of like Mega City 1 showing like the walled city and like showing the various mega blocks or whatever they're called, the big mega apartment buildings that are like 200 stories tall. And he explains like his whole thing and like who he works for and the judges and whatnot. We get like an opening scene where he's chasing down some criminals who are using this drug called slow mo, which is exactly what it says. It makes you feel slow motion for a while. Dredd shoots out the tires of this van as they're escaping and causes a crash, killing two of them. And then he has to go chase down the last one. Ends up getting like taking a woman hostage, and he just threatens to shoot him anyway, despite like the safety of the hostage. And he manages to get around getting the hostage killed by using this thing called a hot shot, which is just like fires like an incendiary round into the like criminal's head. I don't know how this is more effective, to be honest. I don't know if it's like a tracer round or something where it's like automatically going into the guy's head, but it's like I don't see how this was better than just shooting the guy. Just seemed like a weird effect shot that they did. But yeah, it's also just like a scene to demonstrate that the gun has superpowers that like can change to various ammo types, which is different. So yeah, he managed to save this hostage. He gets a thank you from the woman he almost got killed, which I guess. I mean, I can get if you walk out of that situation, I get that you're not really like gonna absolutely question the guy who just almost got you killed, but did technically save your life. But yeah, this is kind of introducing to like Dredd's like unwavering commitment to like his version of justice. Like he will not negotiate with anyone over that shit. This is just to like an absurd degree that's going to get a lot of like almost certainly would have gotten a lot of people killed. Also, the hot shot's like slower than an actual bullet, so like it seems like it would have given the criminal actually more time to react to Dredd pulling the trigger. So I don't see how this is helpful. Again, it just actually blew my mind. Yeah,
I'd also like to point out that so this slow-mo drug effect is actually really cool a lot of the time. It makes for some neat like visual effects on the screen and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is it only makes you feel like you're going in slow-mo. It doesn't actually make you any faster. So actually, you'd think there was a quote once about the lamest superpower, and I think one of the funnier ones I've seen is you can stop time, but only if you're completely still and have your eyes shut. Like what I'm saying is like watching your own death in slow-mo has got to be like the worst punishment that like you could think of imaginable, because like you've got all that time.
happens to at least like 6 people in this movie. I think definitely 4.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe 5.
And
But yeah, yeah. Did you have a thing?
I was going somewhere with that, but I can't
Okay,
remember
okay.
where I was going with it.
After he deals with this guy, he gets like called to the Hall of Justice. That's a weird thing to be saying about like a dystopian government. Like it's not where the Super Friends hang out. It's just where this corrupt police force hangs out. Corrupt and also evil. Not necessarily at the same time. So they go to. He's getting called to talk to the chief judge, which I think in this scenario is just like the judge in charge of the city. Though I don't know. I don't know what the chief judge situation is in the comics. I just know that like Dredd was offered it in the comics once, and also in at the end of the Stallone one, he was offered the position of chief Dredd judge, but turned it down in both scenarios. So essentially, he's going to run this new recruit through some like a test run. She is a psychic that can read minds and whatnot, and like invade people's minds, and that makes her like if she were judge material, she'd be like a good like asset to the force in theory to this yeah, everything that's like about this subplot is kind of like contradicted by the fact that like the judges are like a terrible system that are like, oh yeah, you maybe don't want to aspire to be a judge because it's just like
but
what if
also
yeah.
that borders on the ideology between a thought and actual intent. I think Tom Cruise did a movie about this where he all crime has been fuck, what was it?
Not the was this Minority Report?
Yeah, yeah, predetermination is
Yeah.
basically what it boils down to, whether or not there was actual Like, if somebody thinks about doing a crime, is that the same thing as, having the full intention of actually committing a crime? Um, and that's a scary thought.
Yeah. Although in this circumstance, they're using it to like read people's minds to get information about crimes that have already happened. So it is like
Mhm.
technically investigation. I think there's absolutely a lot of like things you could talk about there. Like there's some privacy issues, but yeah, it is technically like investigating stuff that has definitely happened. We never see it used in yeah, we do see it used improperly, but yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they have the ability to clone people at this point in time. So, in theory, if they had a whole crime division that's just basically, "Oh, we're mind readers," then that becomes even more of an issue than what it was beforehand. Like a tot like a police state is bad enough, but a police state that can read your minds and theoretically, d sentence you, charge you, and kill you for a thought process is definitely not a good thing.
Take it, yeah, take like the like already like obtrusive amounts of powers the judge program does already have, and like combine that with the ability that you can't even lie to these people anymore, and like they can just like if
Mhm.
you've ever done anything, you can now be like
Yeah.
killed, which I think maybe should have been the bigger like if you wanted to like have this be like really blunt force the message of this like the message of the series around, you should have had this pointed out and like just have Dredge go along with it, because I think that would basically like cement in the eyes of the viewer like, oh, oh, this is horrifying, and I get
Yeah,
that
these are
now.
the bad guys.
Yeah,
These
I
are
think that would have been the thing
we
to do. I
shouldn't
think that would
be
have, yeah. I think that maybe would have brought this to a 10. If like that's if you had add that scene to the end of this movie, I think this movie's just a 10. Is it not?
I think there's a lot of things that you could do to definitely bump this movie's score up, and then, like, the moral ambiguity of the character Dredd is not fully, like,
No,
not
yeah, we're like granted
fully,
like we're a couple of anti-cop lefties. Like we're up on like what why like cops are bad. Like but like normal guys that like are like, eh, the cops are just guys that are around. Are they gonna be like, oh yeah, this obviously like they use like an excessive amount of violence, but that doesn't mean like anything. Like, but yeah, like moral people aren't gonna be challenging these
and,
assumptions.
I mean, I guess it's kind of definitely, it'd be weird to watch this with a cop or as a cop, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I think your understanding of the character or the character itself completely changes because you know what it's like to be in situations where, actions are life-threatening, and not necessarily always so black and white, like, it's not always I think I'm, s repeating myself when I'm saying, like, the moral ambiguity of the film is definitely questionable at best.
But yeah, he's essentially because Dredd is such like a good like a good quotation marks judge. They're gonna put like this girl on this psychic lady named Anderson under under his wing in order to see if like she's actually capable, because she did fail the judge like aptitude test, but only by like 3 points, which I got to imagine that's a test you need to like get over 80% on or something. It's one of those, and or you fail. It could, yeah. Hopefully, I really hope this lady didn't get like a 47 on her test. Okay, 77, you could bump that off with like a, yeah.
Well, it also depends on what type of test it's being run at, like,
Oh yeah, no.
so, I think, like, nowadays, police officers are being put through, like, they're held to higher scrutiny under, like mental health tests, because you get one bad person in a point of power, and all of a sudden, like, you've got like massive levels of corruption being hidden behind like qualified immunity. That's where I was going with it.
A very hard to prosecute social class.
Hmm.
And like it depends on where you live too. Like different states, like different places have like different amounts of training you have to go through. But
Oh,
I
and
think
like
that
the United
yeah,
States is notoriously bad for having very, very shorthanded police. I think anywhere between 6 months and 2 years. I want to say 6 months. I think in
yeah, I saw a chart at one point. I can't remember what was on it. But another thing that's concerning is that they say that like all children are put through this aptitude test at some point. So that means they're like put if you pass this test at whatever age, they just scoop you up and like and put you into the program. So that's concerning for reasons that are hope to obvious to everyone here. Like taking children and like training them from the age of whatever to be cops. That's a little suspect. But anyway,
yes, but also like at least they're getting training.
I think it's mostly combat training though, to be fair. But anyway,
But
yeah. And basically also
okay, yeah.
probably brainwashing.
I
That's
th-
probably in there too in this case. I don't think we could put
I
that
think
past them.
that boils down to what they're saying in the other movie, the Sylvester Stallone movie. They're like, Dredd, we need you to come teach a class. And he's like, oh, sweet, on combat or marksmanship? And they're like, ethics. And I'm like, this isn't the guy to be teaching a fucking ethics class. This is like the worst person to have teach an ethics class. Or somehow the best. I
He's
don't
genetically engineered to accept everything this society believes.
like I don't know.
Anyway,
This movie makes my head hurt.
we get a scene where like Dredd lists off a bunch of things, like a lists off a bunch of things to Anderson that she needs to know. Essentially, like the rules for the assessment. Don't lose your firearm. Don't issue an incorrect or ruling. That sort of thing. Just like a lot of like really tough rules. They're overlooking the one about her not having to wear a helmet because a helmet will interfere with her psychic powers. Which okay, yeah, fair makes sense. I don't see why she's able to like read like she does demonstratively read a bit of Dredd's mind at points, maybe. Although we don't see that on screen like we do with the other guys. So maybe she can't read through the helmets as much, but we'll see. No, she does read through another judge's helmet later in the movie. So yeah, she can read minds through other people's helmets, just not through her own. Maybe it reflects things back at her. I don't know. We can just hand wave this, I think, for the lore, whatever. So yeah, they go out to go do a patrol, and as Judge Dredd is just listening, that like we only possibly have time to deal with 6% of any offense. She's just like, and he's just like, "Hey, pick whichever thing you want to go investigate." And she's just like, "Oh, we'll investigate this thing at Peachtree, the Peachtree apartment complex, which is a site of a triple homicide of some sort." So they go to deal with that. So that's interesting. So they go to Peachtree. On the way in, they see a homeless guy leaning against the door, and Judge and Dredd tells Anderson to issue a ruling on this guy for vagrancy, which is a thing police officers do to criminalize homeless people because that helps. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's just the best idea. Just like throw someone who doesn't have any money in prison. That'll sort them out. So yeah, she essentially says, "Oh yeah, give him 2 years in the slammer, but we essentially have to prioritize the triple homicide." So Dred's just like, "Good call. Don't be here when we get back," which is a judgment call, which is weird for Dredge to do. I guess everyone draws the line somewhere. To be fair, I don't think you should throw a homeless guy in jail either, but yeah, for 2 years of all things.
No, it's definitely and like another one of the things that I've seen that uh this system has, it has no low priority crimes.
Yeah, that's probably an issue too.
Everything's rather, oh, you're going to, I guess what they call it is isolation cubes, which is probably a little bit better than jail, considering it's like you're serving your sentence by yourself. So there's no.
That could just be solitary confinement for 3 years. I don't want you to put that out into the world as
Okay, yeah,
much.
okay,
Yeah,
that's definitely not much better.
yeah. Solitary
That
confinement
is
is torture,
probably
just for the
even worse.
record, so everyone in the audience knows. It's a
Yes.
form of like recognized torture. You can't be doing that to people, but we still do
Mhm.
it in regularly.
But what I'm saying is they took out all forms of, like, fines in this universe,
Hmm.
which is good. I disagree with the fine system, but also
Hmm.
if the on the opposite end of the fine system is everybody's getting into like, what I'm saying is crime is now officially hitting everybody indisparagingly, while beforehand, if a fine is created as a form of punishment, it's only meant for a lower class of people.
To be fair,
Um,
we don't ever see him have
because
to deal.
somebody's
Do we ever? I don't know that we ever see him like have to deal with a white collar crime at all in this movie. So I don't know that they're getting dealt with in the same fashion.
what I'm just comparing a homeless man sitting on a stoop as a form of vagrancy. Maybe he was panhandling. I'd say that would be the equivalent of somebody like jaywalking or like running a red light, where normally a police officer would just issue a fine. Instead of them doing that, they're issuing jail time.
I don't know that that's necessarily.
And
Anyway, yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
it's probably a bad sign to be fair. Anyway, so yeah, they go to see this triple homicide. There's like a paramedic guy. He's like, I think he runs like the medical clinic in this building. Though that's an interesting thing to see, like mixed use housing in the United States. That's unheard of. Like, do you know how much of a bitch it is to get mixed use housing in the United States? It's ridiculous. Actually, it's literally illegal in a lot of places.
What do you classify as mixed use housing?
Housing that has a business attached, like there's a lot of places that are grandfathered in, but like you're not allowed to build like new mixed use
Yeah.
housing in the United States a lot of the times. And this is clearly, well, it would have been built after now, so I don't know, maybe they got rid of mixed use housing laws at some point. I don't know. It's weird.
I've seen a couple, like there's one here in town, and then I think there was one in Moose Jaw when I was growing up where there was a but I guess it's kind of maybe different because it was a business with a housing unit on top of it.
Yep, that's what I mean. But like, here's the thing. First of all, this is Canada. We're like exactly 5% better. Second of all, like older buildings you could do it on. So like all the stuff on 4th Street, there's technically like some housing above those sometimes. So there's that.
Yeah.
And it also depends on like the size of your city and whatnot. But I know like older housing you can do it on. But anyway,
Mhm.
so yeah, they're going to check on these guys. They identify the bodies. They're all guilty of possession, which is just like you know, a nonsense crime in order to like criminalize drug use somehow, and that through some weird way will like prevent the use of drugs everywhere. Yeah, this is very much like, yeah, possession's definitely a real crime, guys. Let's like talk about that some more. I think I was talking to like a I was listening to the radio at work, and the boss and someone got charged, and the radio was advertising that someone got caught for like possession of a drug, and my coworker was just like, "Oh yeah, good. They caught somebody." I'm like, "Eh, they caught someone for possession. That doesn't really mean anything. Like it doesn't. Yeah, it's just like
It
someone had
depends.
a well, no, it's like someone had a drug for like it was like a hard drug in this case, but like if it
How
was
much?
possession, yeah, but if it's possession over like it's you need to watch for like possession with intent to distribute because that would be the real debatable issue in drug
Mhm.
laws and whatnot. But yeah, no, just possession doesn't mean anything. So yeah, they noticed that there was someone got these guys got skinned and then thrown off the side of the building, which we saw in a little bit of a flat like a scene earlier where we were introduced to the villain. But yeah, they're going to go check on them. They noticed that the two of the guy some of the guys were from the 39th floor of this building, so they're going to find the place where the criminals live on the 39th floor of the building, which the paramedic updates them because he lives here and knows what the deal is, and just introduces the villain. She's a lady named Mama who took over the gang at the top of the building and then eventually managed to usurp the three other gangs in the building. So now she's like in charge of the criminal element in this building. So she's the big bad of the movie, and the paramedic tells them that there's a crime place in the on the 39th floor. So they go to deal with that, and then they break in, kill almost everyone in the room who has a gun. I find it difficult to believe they didn't shoot anyone. In real life, they certainly would have shot someone innocent in this sort of no-knock raid, which is exactly what this is. Just a no-knock raid, which are notoriously very dangerous and deadly for everyone involved. At least it's not during the middle of the night. Although in this big concrete box, who can tell? So yeah, they kill everyone. We get some indication that Anderson's not like used to the violence. She's like shaking, and they've managed to capture actually one of the guys who was a gang leader. And Anderson reads his mind a little bit and finds out that he was the guy that committed the murder. So they go to bring him in for questioning because she's not entirely sure that they did it, and also like she's doing psychic things, so this might just be some due diligence. So they're going to go take him in, but Mama's guys notice them on camera doing this, so they have to lock down the building in order to prevent making sure this gang leader doesn't talk to anybody, and thus exposing their whole operation before they're thoroughly entrenched. Because they got all their eggs in one basket right now because they're running a slow mo production ring. Here is the deal. So, yeah, that's a thing. Mama's men take control of the control room and put the Peachtree building on lockdown. In war mode, I think it's. I can safely assume this is some sort of like precaution to defend against like nuclear bombs. I think that's what the deal is. So yeah, they're locked in. Also, they can't call for help, and they do a whole thing. Mama has this tech guy working under them, who is clearly being threatened and whatnot to do his job. He's a character. So yeah, that's his thing. We also see the homeless guy from earlier get crushed by a blast door. So that's a thing. So yeah, Mama does a whole thing where she announces her intentions over the building, says that everyone needs to kill Judge Dredd and his partner, and also that anyone who helps Dredd will be killed, along with their entire families. So yeah, that's a thing. Dredd and Anderson go to where the clinic is because they knew the guy was friendly and who talked to them earlier. They kill a bunch of guys outside it. Anderson has to execute one of the guys who attack them. So that's a thing where she kills a guy who's already been defeated. And then, but the clinic guy isn't going to let them in because he doesn't want to compromise the clinic. So yeah, he's just out for like he's staying neutral on all this. So they go wandering around. They're hiding about because they have to like sneak around until they find a way to deal with this. They end up hiding in a room to avoid a patrol, and the woman ends up telling them where a service elevator is so that they don't find her in his they don't so that the gang doesn't find Dredd in her room or on her floor, so that no one she knows gets hurt. So she tells them about a service elevator that'll take them higher in the building. But on the way out, Anderson notices a picture frame of the guy she executed standing with this woman. So yeah, this is yeah, she executed this man's husband. So yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, she gets to feel guilty, I guess. So yeah, they go to the 76th floor, hauling the gang leader around this whole time. They're wandering about on that floor when they get when Mama has the entire floor locked down, and so they get trapped there. Dredd goes ahead on his own to scout out the area, and ends up noticing that Mama has set up a bunch of miniguns to like level the entire section of the floor they're in the hopes of actually managing to just kill them through pure velocity of magnitude of lead being pointed in that general direction where they know they are. Fortunately, they managed to blow a hole in the side of the building to get outside, where they managed to call for help. And yeah, so that's a thing. They get out to the skate park. They get their call for help out. So yeah, after that, they end up doing some after they Dredd goes back out after the gunfire ends to kill all the guys that go searching for him, and ends up throwing a guy off the balcony as his own warning to Mama, kind of cementing that he is just as cruel as Mama is.
Well, you could argue the fact that he didn't skin this dude alive.
Fair.
Like, I'd argue that, like, it's
Yeah.
not so much the fact that they threw the person off the building, it's the fact that they skinned him alive before that they threw him off the building. I don't I guess it's like one of those comments where like, "Oh, I'm gonna skin somebody alive and then push them off the building." It's more of the shock and awe factor to state that nobody should mess with me type ordeal, or this could happen to you. Like it's using that leverage to try and keep other people in order that's more concerning. But
Yeah.
I mean, yes, in some issues, some people might say that Dredge is bad for pushing somebody off a building. I'd argue on the other hand,
He is reflecting their behavior.
oh yeah, by all means.
I think you can definitely say that sneeze knocked out my memory. I forgot where I was going. I think you can definitely say to say like all you can say is like, oh, they're not I don't know. Yeah, there's some similarities, but I don't think the second you get to like the issue of like, yeah, Drudge is like just kind of upholding the society, but like I think this is one of the problems with this movies is like the people that Dredd's after are largely unequivocally evil. Like he's cruel to everyone, but that only happens occasionally. I think it's a little difficult to like spot the points where he's being evil. But yeah, I think he is definitely like he's demonstrating the same kind of behavior, which is what is I think my point. So yeah, after this they torture the guy who the criminal leader to try to get some information out of him because he's just like, yeah, your boss just tried to kill a bunch of police officers to keep what you have quiet, to keep what you know quiet. So I kind of want to know what's going on here. So he beats him up for a little bit, but eventually he gets nothing from his torture because torture doesn't work, which is the big thing you got to like remind pro torture people is like torture doesn't work. That's the core issue here. I think like it's immoral and also it doesn't work.
Depends what you're trying to do, though.
This is for another time though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Different can of worms.
Yeah. But yeah, so Anderson goes into the criminal mastermind's, the gang leader's mind in order to get the information of what's going on, and they fuck around with the head. She fucks around with his head, which is probably its own can of worms. Let's be honest, there's some issues there. The scene involves like giving him images of his like body being like his junk getting ripped off or bitten off, I should say. So yeah, that's not entirely ethical either. Just because the guy didn't get any extra bruises from it. But yeah, she manages to get the information that this is that the on the higher floors of this building there's a big drug lab. So yeah, they know what's going on. So yeah, they're going. They've Dredd and Anderson agree that they're going to go after Mama because best offense is a good defense, I guess. Even though Anderson's just like, yeah, we should probably just wait for reinforcements. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, as they're wandering about, they get started to get followed by a bunch of teenagers who eventually pull guns on Dredd and Anderson as they're going to enter an elevator, which distracts Anderson enough that the gang leader manages to like jump his cuffs and like grab a hold of her and her gun and pulls her into the elevator before Dredd can deal with her, allowing getting while he has to deal with the two teenagers who he stuns and murders one of them. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he murders at least one of these teenagers, I think.
Yeah.
They're not teenagers. I don't think it's stated that they're teenagers. They just seem really young. But yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, Dredd, as they capture Anderson, the gang has now captured Anderson and got a hold of all her stuff. They're keeping her a prisoner for now because they gotta do a thing where they're gonna have to set up the idea that she was just killed in the initial drug raid on the 36th floor or whatever, so that they don't realize what's going on here. They'll know something went down, just not that there was a whole drug thing. But yeah, Dredd. They're keeping her alive for now. Dredd issues his own warning over the intercom, in order to lure some guys to his location, who he then napalms, or maybe white phosphoruses. It seems like he sets people on fire, which is war crime. Yeah, I think that counts. It just seems like yeah, he sets some guys on fire from across the road, using one of the teenagers as bait for the guys to convince them that he's standing in the phone booth. But yeah, that's the thing. But after this, Mama comes up with the idea that she's going to call on some corrupt judges who end up showing at the building, waiting off two other judges who had come to investigate some reinforcements, who had just been waiting at the door for bullshit reasons. Because where this police state isn't absolutely useless, it's corrupt. And now the four corrupt police officers are going into the building and are going to negotiate with Mama to kill Dredd and Anderson for 1 million credits, whatever that is. It's a number that sounds big. But yeah, so yeah, they send the gang leader that Dredd and Anderson had captured to go kill Anderson, because they can kill her now. Essentially, the gang leader doesn't realize that a judge's gun can only be used by the officer that holds it, or else it will explode. So it explodes, blowing the guy's arm off, and that allows Anderson to escape. So yeah, that's a thing. And she goes kill some guys. Meanwhile, Dredd ends up meeting the first of the four corrupt judges, and he manages to pin him basically immediately. Yeah, he just like after like 2 sentences, just like notices a discrepancy. It just like jumps on the conclusion that this guy's corrupt, so they get beat up. Yeah, so Dredd kills the first one, and then Dredd manages to use the last of his bullets to kill the second one. He is running out of ammo. In the meantime, Anderson encounters one of the other the corrupt judge who was sent to go kill her, and they figured that like, oh, she's going to see this other judge and hesitate because they'll she doesn't know what's going on. But Anderson reads the corrupt judge's mind, and then kills her. So yeah, that plan didn't work. Dredd ends up getting shot by the leader of the corrupt judges, Judge Lex. So he gets shot. He's bleeding, and Lex goes up to go finish the job. And Lex is just like, any last words? And Dredd says, "Wait." And he's like, and Lex is just like, "What? Are you kidding me? That's all you got to say, and that's the last words?" And then Anderson sneaks up behind him and kills him because that's what Dredd was waiting for. I guess he noticed Anderson was on her way somehow, or he was just bluffing, which is also entirely possible. And I think the more likely explanation, honestly. But yeah,
I didn't mind this scene.
yeah, no, it's interesting. It's good.
The exchange was funny, at least.
Yeah, and frankly, it kind of doesn't. It's not the worst thing in the world that like Dredd doesn't have like the most badass thing to say when he's confronted with death. I think that would make him look a little too cool, honestly. I think that would kind of like make the movie kind of worse, actually. But yeah, I just choose to believe that Dredd didn't know what was going on and that Anderson just showed up by pure luck. But anyway, so yeah, they're able to reload ammo because Dredd ran out of ammo, but they can't use the other Dredd guns. So Anderson's just running around with the guns that all the criminals have because this is America and everyone has a gun. But yeah, they find the tech guy next. Anderson reads his minds and gets the information for like Mama's security door out of him, so that they can go arrest Mama or kill Mama or whatever. But Anderson lets him go because he's actually a victim in all this because she saw that he had been threatened and tortured by Mama, so that's a thing. But Dredd wouldn't have allowed that because his morality is black and white, and he would have absolutely shot this kid. So there is some evidence that he's a bad guy in this. But anyway, so they raid the inner sanctum of the building. They shoot the last of the bad guys. Anderson gets shot, leaving Dredd to deal with Mama alone. Mama has like attached a like heartbeat sensor to her wrist and says if her heart stops beating, she'll the entire top half of the building will blow up, killing the rest of the people in the building because I think that's how that works. Yeah, Judge will not negotiate, so he shoots her and throws her off the balcony in hopes that the 200 layers of concrete below them will stop the signal from reaching the explosives. Which, yeah, if we're dealing with radio waves, yeah, that sure works. It's not going to work if this thing is like Wi-Fi connected or something, because then you're just sending an email to it or whatever, or like a text message.
Pretty much. Text
Yeah,
message.
this
Text
seems
message?
like a very 80s plot point. It's like, what, this thing isn't connected to the internet? Because that would have basically gotten everyone in this building if this was like a thing that was connected to the internet.
I like how they're trying to explain it by science, and it's just like, this is a futuristic fucking 2080. We have science, like sci-fi shit, but like, they're like going off of the, like, not even like a 2012 explanation or 2000, like, I can't remember when this movie actually came out. I want to say 2012, but I feel like it might have been later.
No, it was
Uh,
2012.
yeah, okay, but like even if we're like even by today's standards, it's like not even a viable.
But yeah, no, I like saw that and I was like immediately like, wait, this thing uses actual radio waves to send the signal? Why wouldn't you just hook it up to the Wi-Fi? That way it doesn't matter where you are. It'll
Mhm.
just like go through the Wi-Fi signal. So it doesn't need to work through 300 layers of concrete. It just needs to I don't pretend to
I
know how
mean,
Wi-Fi works, but I think you can get around this by connecting to Wi-Fi.
I don't know if there's Wi-Fi in this city though.
I guess that's maybe the explanation that they don't have Wi-Fi.
Like
Um,
yeah, the nuclear waste could have destroyed all of their like technological infrastructure to an extent that
I guess the internet was never invented in this.
or the internet's been destroyed.
Yeah, or something.
Well, you'd think if we like even nowadays, if we like had like if a nuclear apocalypse happened and then all of a sudden we like grew past that fact of that as a society, you think we like would be trying to rebuild our infrastructure towards Wi-Fi so that we can contact other societies
Yeah, we'd
better.
eventually reinvent
Yeah,
Wi-Fi or something.
I don't know.
It's yeah, it's a whole thing.
At least internet, but
I just thought it was a weird observation. I'm like, this is such a like a future problem to have, where like we're critiquing like the far future sci-fi, but just like, wait, why didn't you just use the Wi-Fi to connect them? Like, text the fucking thing. God damn it. I'm pretty sure even like modern IEDs use like
yeah.
cell phones and what shit. Like, if you dropped her into like a massive cave, that'd be one thing. But this is like an apartment building. This is like very
I think that that's also like I think we've actually had this conversation with somebody else recently about heart monitored devices. Like if a doctor offers sends you out for with a heart monitor device, it will like it'll record the information, but you still have to bring it back to the doctors for the doctors to then like it doesn't transmit it directly to the doctor's office. You have to physically come in and bring back the device
and one would assume this
for
is just
them
like a
to
Fitbit
go
or
in
something. This
monitoring
is
it.
just this is just also this is like a Fitbit. Why is this like this contraption like like jabs into her wrist with like spikes and shit? You can just like strap a Fitbit to her
Mhm.
arm. Like this is Fitbit technology. It's- this-
I'd like to think that if my nuclear or like my nuclear option for like my ultimate end game for an evil villain plot device does not revolve around Fitbit technology,
well, if it had a revolved
especially
around
not like
Fitbit,
Fitbit as it is designed currently.
I feel like I'm just saying. I feel like if they had used a Fitbit, the bomb wouldn't went off.
Yeah, but
Like
like,
I'm
can
just
you
saying.
imagine if it was an actual Fitbit at the end of this movie instead of like a device that like actually embedded itself into her skin? She just held up this watch and was like, "Yeah, if this thing falls off, if this bracket somehow, like this bracelet somehow comes off my body, then this whole place explodes." Then you'd just be like, "Okay, I'm gonna shoot you in the head now."
Well, I guess a Fitbit is connected to your phone, right? So I guess she'd have to like separate her from the phone. So I guess it would still work. No one in
I
this
don't
building has a
know.
cell phone. No, does anyone in this movie have a cell phone? Real talk. Like Dredd has like his wrist
No.
communicator, but no one has a cell phone. What a weird future we. this is this is such a
Yeah, but
21st century problem. Like we're critiquing like wait, we're critiquing like like, some guy in the 1970s is just like inventing this and it's just like, oh yeah, this is so futuristic. He uses so much fancy technology. There's like a phone that fits in a guy's glove, and I'm like, wait, why doesn't he just using his cell phone? It's like that idiot. Use your cell phone. It's like us living in the
I
actual
like
future.
I actually saw a post on Facebook the other day where it's like I really love reading like early sci-fi because like the aspirations that these early sci-fi writers have had for us as a society is like super inspirational compared to like what's actually been like how technology has advanced within like the last I don't know like 40 years.
Yeah, and like there's also like a
Like,
flip
I
side
think
where
the best
just like the flip side of that where it's just like we just have stuff that like superheroes have, like we just have like the Dick Tracy watch lying around, like this is the thing that everyone can have if they want, with like 300 with like $500 they can have like a Dick Tracy watch that would blow his mind,
yeah.
like a better Dick Tracy watch too. Like in everything.
But like I think the example that they were using was like the fact that in one of the sci-fis that they were reading that it was 2020 and they were like explore like humankind was exploring like Mars at this point, and as like we haven't even like we have manned drones or unmanned drones up there, I guess, but like no human has set foot on Mars yet.
Getting there though. I don't know.
I don't even know if we're close.
Yeah, I don't know. Elon Musk seems to be in charge of it, so who knows? So yeah, that's the end of the thing. They wander down to the bottom of the building. They've unlocked all the doors. Yeah. So Anderson walks away walks away in a huff because she's just like, yeah, I'm not going to be a judge or whatever. I think it seems like she's saying that in like a sense of like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to be a judge. This job isn't for me. But Dredd's behavior is just like, yeah, I think she passed. I think she'll make a good judge, despite like breaking two minor rules, sort of. So, but yeah, I think I don't know if Dredd and Anderson are on the same page here. But anyway, that's the movie. It ends pretty well just there.
Mhm.
I think there maybe needed to be a scene where like they cleared up whether or not Anderson was like quitting the force or not. But yeah, I think that would have been interesting. I think that would have like this movie desperately needs like a scene at the end where they introduce some pathos to it. I think is one of the major flaws of it. I think you could put a bow on this and like improve it significantly.
I think that there's a lot to be said that you could have ultimately like had Judge Dredd kill 200,000 people, and like this ultimate like is unchecked power worth it in terms of,
To stop some drug dealers.
well, yeah, that too, but like unchecked power like at the cost of human life really worth it, like especially like he took a giant gamble to throw Mama off that building in hopes that he was like 100% correct on his theory. And I think him ultimately killing like a whole bunch of people by the end of the movie makes for a better sequel than whatever they fucking had planned. Uh, if it also didn't actually, in fact, kill all the characters in the sentence, but
Yeah, there's a lot of. I think you throw something at the end of this movie and it becomes really like it just becomes like the best. I think you can like
mhm.
basically have the same film, but like throw something at the end and it becomes really good. I don't know. What do you give the
I,
movie? Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't think. What I was gonna say is, I just don't think that Dredd in himself has ever doubted his own judgment call, and that is a bad thing
Yeah,
ultimately for the character because the character never moves past that point. You need to humble him at least like just once, and I think they were trying to do it by saying like, "Oh, but Judge Dredd let Anderson become a fucking judge," but that's like very fucking low stakes. You need like ultimate high stakes or fucking nothing at all. Like you can't have this mini wavering fucking bullshit pandering or anything. Like you need something over the top to really better define the character and flesh it out a little more than what because he's very
yeah, you
two-dimensional.
need. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's part of the character traditionally. But I think yeah, we just need like something to like challenge him in some way, and that's just not present significant. Like there's small examples, but they're small examples. We need like a big
Mhm.
example of like what his deal is and like how to challenge him. Like I said, this needs like this is a movie that needs a bow on it. And it becomes like really good if you
Or
get that proper
or
bow on it.
I guess arguably you could also do it in exposition. You could have done it in your backstory. You could have explained why Dredd is kind of like this authoritarian super cop, but like you don't do that. Like you just drop the character and you're like, yeah, this guy's an asshole. Like that that's what it kind of boils down to, where you don't actually you don't give him any form of character development or character growth, or I would argue that like the character that
significant moral challenge.
the character that gets, like, morally challenged more is Anderson, but this isn't fucking Judge Anderson, this is Judge Dredd, right? And I'm assuming they have so much fucking source material to draw on with the
Oh yeah,
comics that's been running for probably closer to 40 years now, where they're just like, "Yeah, we're gonna ignore all that to make it a generic action film,"
Die Hard clone.
and it kind of loses all of its significance after that. So I'm not gonna rate this much higher than maybe a 3 out of 10 because it had like maybe one or two good uh lines.
I'm putting it at a
It's
6.
one of those things that okay,
Yeah,
that's a choice.
yeah. Like I've just said, like I think I put it at a 6 because like I did say earlier, like if you put a good bow at the end of this movie, it becomes a 10. So that's the thing. I think I think that's like the big caveat is there's 4 points there that like just expressed like what didn't happen that needed to be done. Like
Mhm.
like there's a lot of good stuff in here. It just needs like one good thing and it becomes the best. But yeah, that I think that reflects what I've said about what I think needs to happen with the movie. But I also understand your point of view
Yeah.
totally. And you're certainly not getting that from like the Stallone one either, just to be clear. Like at the end of it, he doesn't like I don't think like there is no more challenge about what happens in the original Judge Dredd as there is in this one.
I also I also like the idea that like Sylvester Stallone's character had the potential to go in and change like the organization as a whole from the top, and he's like, "Nah, fuck it, I'm just gonna like
Exactly.
run around and fuck shit up as a police officer instead of like aspiring to like a higher purpose to like
In this
sort out
obviously
this
corrupt
organization."
system, which needs like something that this is honestly poignant because we're gonna get to the finale in a couple weeks, guys, and we're gonna be talking about this again. I'm just spoiling it. I'm not telling you what the finale is yet, but we will be talking about this a bit more. But I think this was actually a good choice. Thank you,
Mhm.
Cody. This is important for that conversation, and we get into that.
It's honestly one of the things that I wouldn't have actually put on this list, but I think, because there's, like, so many other comic book with, like, The Watchmen, fucking V for Vendetta. A lot of that is also Alan Moore, by the way, but also has, like, some of the same undertones to what the story is trying to say. Power being un
Yeah,
unchecked
unchecked.
is definitely, like, a lot of the problems that we're yeah, um, seeing in the world currently.
Well, we've been recording for almost 2 hours. I think see you guys in a little bit for Bloodshot later in the month. Like, comment, subscribe, give us the 5-star reviews on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. See you next time for Bloodshot. You can go now. Goodbye.